Here's a map of Lower Manhattan, and we're going to visit the area around here, City Hall Park, right here. We're at the southern entrance to City Hall Park, and we're going to take a walk around the park. Going up Park Row over here. We'll walk north on Park Row and make a left at Chambers Street. And returning to this spot by walking down Broadway. Well, before there was a City Hall, or City of New York, this area is called the Common. That dates from around 1730. And here's in the fountain in the park with City Hall in the background and the Visible Building in the background. Well, here we see 15 Park Row. From 1899 to 1908, it was the world's tallest building. This is the Potter Building at 38 Park Row from 1886. An early use of terracotta in New York. Very elaborate building. It was an office building, now it's apartments. And it was the city's first fireproof building. Here's the fountain in City Hall Park. It's a very nice one. However, it's a reproduction of the original fountain. The original was moved to Crotona Park in the Bronx many years ago and replaced with this reproduction. I don't know the reason why. Now, this is City Hall, built between 1802 and 1812. And there have been many alterations over the years. It's in a French Renaissance and Federal style. Abraham Lincoln's body lay in state here in 1865 before his trip back to Illinois for burial. Now we can see the statue of Nathan Hale right there. It used to be on Broadway where you could have access to it and see it up close, but they moved it into the park here. Now, because of 9/11, you don't have much access, or any access, to City Hall. Another view of City Hall. So here is the original Pace University building, and to the left, another building of Pace University. This one opened in 1970. Homer Pace developed a course to tutor candidates for the CPA exam. He opened a school in 1906 in the New York Tribune building. The current building we see here was opened in 1970. Here's a statue of Benjamin Franklin on Park Row. It's the only remnant of the vast publishing industry that was here in the 19th century. In the 19th century, Park Row was known as Newspaper Row. The Times, the Tribune, the Herald, the World, and the Sun, and many others published here in the 19th century. Also, paper manufacturers, advertising agencies, printers, and printmakers were located here. Joseph Pulitzer's World Building stood here, as did the Tribune Building. Both are long gone. The Times, published at 41 Park Row, is now part of Pace University. Newspaper Row's decline started with the move of the Herald to 34th Street, which became Herald Square. And the Times moved to 43rd Street, and that eventually became Times Square. Well, here we see the Brooklyn Bridge, and where we're standing was the Manhattan terminal of the Brooklyn Bridge's electric trains and trolley cars. By 1907, 60 trains an hour were running across the bridge. Now, autos eventually took over, and the terminal was dismantled in 1944. We're looking east on Chambers Street, named for John Chambers, a lawyer, alderman, and New York State Supreme Court judge between 1727 and his death about 1765. Well, this is the municipal building, completed in 1914. City government agencies are housed here. And you've got the public advocate, the Manhattan Borough President, and the Marriage Bureau. Another view of the municipal building. Sitting atop the municipal building is the Statue of Civic Fame, representing the glory of the city of New York. I believe it's the third largest statue in the city. Well, here's the Surrogates Court and the Hall of Records. The building dates from around 1911, and it houses the court and city archives. Very ornate building, lots of statues. Here's the Emigrant Industrial Savings Bank building from about 1912. It's now city offices. The bank itself was organized in 1851 to serve Irish immigrants. Well, this is the old New York County Courthouse, also known as the Tweed Courthouse, now houses city offices. William Marcy Tweed, or Boss Tweed, was a Democratic leader in the 1860s and 70s, and through elected officials, he and his henchmen made off with about $10 to $14 million in the construction of this courthouse. He and his ring were convicted and sent to jail, and the courthouse was eventually completed in 1878. And it is considered an architectural masterpiece. At the corner of Broadway and Chambers Street is what was formerly the Alexander Turney Stewart department store. It opened in 1846. And it was the first department store in the United States. And it was also the first commercial building with a marble facade. It was called the Marble Palace. Eventually, Stewart moved his store to Broadway and 9th Street, and it was bought out by Wanamaker's department store, which was Garden City on Long Island was established by Stewart to provide affordable housing for his workers. He's buried there, and Stewart Avenue is named for him. Well, from 1919 to 1952, the New York Sun newspaper published here. But it's long gone, and all that remains is a landmark clock. On the northwest corner of Broadway and Chambers Street is the Broadway Chambers building from 1900, designed by Cass Gilbert, designer of the Woolworth building. So this was Gilbert's first New York City building. Well, we're walking south now on Broadway. And City Hall Park, and City Hall is to our left. Now at 280 Broadway is the Home Life Insurance Building, a marble-clad building from 1894. Still here. Well, here we see the Woolworth Building, opened in 1913. 60 stories. It was the tallest building in the world for 16 years until 1929. Built by Frank W. Woolworth, who made his fortune from 5 and 10 cent stores. It's known as the Cathedral of Commerce at the time. And it has a magnificent lobby. Unfortunately, after 9/11, it's been closed to the public. Built in a Gothic style. Well, here we see the entrance to the Woolworth Building. And some of the elaborate brickwork. On this spot was the Astor House, opened as the Park Hotel in 1836 by John Jacob Astor, who renamed it the Astor House. Jacob Astor. It was the nation's most prestigious hotel for decades, 309 rooms. It offered bathing and toilet facilities, a real novelty. It had running water before the Croton water system opened in 1842. Lincoln spoke here on February 19th, 1861. It's still cool. Just below City Hall Park on Broadway is St. Paul's Chapel, dating from 1768. It's Manhattan's only pre-Revolutionary War building. There are older structures, such as farmhouses, but not buildings that are older than St. Paul's. This is the end of our walk. I hope you have enjoyed it.